are projections based off what you expect to happen, or are they based off of things are worse than you expect to happen? If the answer is I need everything to go right to hit these numbers, then we're all gambling here.
Welcome into the Get Invested podcast, a podcast about all things real estate and real estate investing, brought to you by Capital Velocity Investments and a part of the Matthias Talks Investing Substack.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Get Invested podcast. As always, we are your hosts, Jordan and Matthias, and we're excited to talk all things investing, real estate, and real estate investing. And as we've been doing, Matthias, we're walking the narrow path these days. We're sticking right to the real estate investing. Going to break down another, I guess you say, fundamental part of the syndication real estate investing business. I'm going to today talk about if you are looking at an investment like this, what kinds of things should you ask the operator, lead GP, basically what things you should ask someone like Matthias if they're talking to you about a deal. So that's going to be pretty easy because he's right here and he can just say, here are the things you should. Or maybe, I guess one way to phrase it is the questions Matthias doesn't want to have to answer. No, I'm kidding. There's none of those. But yeah, let's just jump in, Matthias.
Yeah, I mean, what prompted this is we talk a lot about we're in the trust business. We really sell trust in my abilities, my knowledge, and a bit. Am I able to build a successful team to go create successful investments? And one of the ways that you can build that trust is by asking a bunch of questions. And we thought we'd bear down and present some questions that I've been asked in the past, and then also ones that I ask when I'm investing, when other people are going to be in control. And then also ones that I appreciate getting those questions because that means they're thinking, and questions just make you sharper, right? So if there's all the time we'll get something that, we haven't looked at that in a while. Let's go re-verify whatever that tiny little variable is or whatever, and make sure that our assumptions were correct on that, and sharpen our plan as we go. So yeah, I appreciate those types of questions, but yeah.
And I would imagine that sometimes those questions give you an opportunity to talk about something that, it makes you like, I should tell them about this thing. That is a good.
Yeah. A lot of the time, some of the broader stuff they ask, and we'll get more specific than this, but they'll be like, well, why Mississippi, when we invest in Mississippi, or why? And I'm like, then I can kind of share why we think the things that we do. And, hey, we have actually thought about a lot of this, and there's a reason behind all of what we do. So, and kind of, explain why we think this is such a good opportunity or whatever. So, it's always a chance to sell the deal a little bit, but also to show that, hey, we have thought about that. And here's either how we're, dealing with it, or how, or why it's such a good thing or bad thing or whatever.
Yeah. So right before we jump into the first one, I just wanted to note that we recently had an episode where we talked about the three kind of big conversations you have with first-time investors. Mm-hmm. There's might be a little crossover with this one, but this is a very different focus. We're going to focus on someone who is assessing very specific questions about a business plan rather than just general fears, anxieties, hurdles.
Exactly.
About investing in general.
So really these questions are basically based on, let's say you've got an investment overview, pitch deck, whatever you want to call it, and you're looking at it and you're going, okay, hey, on the surface, everything looks like a pretty good deal. How do you go about digging a little deeper? I have questions with investors like, man, you tell me, what should I be asking about right now? And I had a conversation with an investor a couple of days ago that said that exact phrase. And I'm like, well, maybe we could do a podcast where I, can talk about, hey, this is what you should be asking. This is what I ask when I'm doing the same thing. So,
right. I guess you've already got the trust of the person who's asking you what they should be asking.
Yeah.
So that's one victory, but we want our investors to be smart on the ball, super comfortable with it, and know, especially because as always, we want them to go forth and not just be us. So if they come across another one who's doesn't have as trustworthy of a face, maybe, ask the right questions. So where do you want to dive in here?
Yeah. So what I like to start with when I talk to an operator on investment I'm looking at, I go, what keeps you up about a deal? What worries you? What might be something that you feel like a variable you don't have a full handle on, that kind of thing. And really it's just to kind of poke around. The point of this question is to poke around and see like, hey, what are the risks? We always want to figure out the risk and what, more importantly, what the operator, has he identified the risk and what's he doing about them, I guess is really what we're trying to get to. And it could be anything. It could be, I'm worried about, we're going to war with another country. I'm worried about the economy. I'm worried about a factory that might shut down. I'm worried about them building a bunch of supply in town, all that. So it's a good way to poke and see how the defense is going, that the operator is set up.
Right. It seems like it would accomplish a few things in that vein, right? One, establish, like you said, how much of this defensive strategy, contingency, or just simply thinking it all the way through, I guess.
Yeah,
And to put it in
exactly.
really bare terms, but how much of that are they doing? Are they being as realistic as you would want them to be? How much are they thinking through it? How much are they doing to plan against it? Because if they don't see any possible pitfall, there's no way to plan for it. Right. So if they got to have identified it in order to plan for it. And you would want them, it would test to see how honest, I guess, they're going to be. Not that people are going to lie, but will they tell you straight up, oh, this is how it could go bad? Like, this is what I am actually nervous about this. Like, I think it's still a good deal, but this is where the risk lies. I mean, are they really going to tell you that to your face?
Yeah, I mean, and if they won't, then that's a real red flag, right? It's because there's always going to be a risk. There's going to be multiple risks. There's risks involved in investing. Everybody knows that. So what this helps with is that there's a tendency on, if you do what I do, you've got a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in every deal that you do. A lot of time and effort and energy and worry and everything that goes into this. And so it's hard for you to say, you've convinced yourself, right? Which oftentimes is going to be harder than most people, but you've convinced yourself this is a good deal. It can be hard to peel them back and try to get back onto unbiased, neutral ground and go, well, realistically, what are the risks? And you want to invest with somebody who's able to do that. Because, I mean, I know when I was just starting out, we would do a deal where I was like, I know there's value here. We want to buy this deal. And, there would be a bunch of like road bumps and speed bumps and like, that's a problem. And I would be like, I think we should still buy it. And we end up going forward with it, and it ended up being right. But I don't know that I would still do that in the position I'm in now, because I'm like, look, the risk got up there, right? So that every little speed bump and all these little hurdles that come up and or problems you didn't know about, things like that, those are risks to the success of the investment. So it is easy to get, I don't know, blinders on and just keep charging forward and kind of ignore the bad, because again, you're already so pot committed, on a personal, emotional level.
Yeah. Not only the emotional level of the time, energy, effort, frustration, amount of time you've held a phone to your ear, all the different
yes
things that are going on there. But just, I would think that it's a natural thing as well, because if they're doing it, well, provided that this is a all things being equal and frank and acting in good faith operator, it's a great deal. They think it's a great deal. They're excited about it. And sometimes there can be a tendency for sure to want to just put the absolute best foot forward, right? To just say, hey, here's all the upside. But, you're not buying a TV. So you need to know. You need to know a little bit more than that. And again, it goes back to, as you pointed out, you can assess how much critical thought they've put into these possibilities, even if they don't think they're going to happen. That just is proof of the level of their planning, I would say.
Yeah.
And like you said, it could even be something that's outside of their control. And in a lot of ways, willing to just say, hey, man, this is my human anxieties about this. It's not all sunshine over here either. There's rainbows, but there's also clouds, that kind of, so just, sure. I think it's an interesting thing. We talk about the trust business. I don't think that's something people would necessarily get to without having been involved in it. But you're like, oh yeah, actually you want to share the possibilities, the downsides as part of that trust building, right? Because it can't just always be happy trails. I'm just going to try to fit as many cliches.
Yeah, like I'd say you're doing pretty good. You're on like 3.
Yeah, honestly, this is a tangent, but it's actually a good rhetorical strategy. If anybody's out there who's trying to sell something or get people to do something, admitting the doubts, talking about the bad, and then showing how they're going to overcome, it's a standard rhetorical practice. So don't always just try to be, this is all the amazing things.
And that topic and that question goes very closely with like the next question that I kind of have written down here. And
before you move on, though,
yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you: have you asked that kind of question and gotten a less than satisfactory answer, or one that gave you pause? If you had, I was going to ask you to kind of just describe like what was said that gave you pause. What was the type of answer you were like, I don't know about that?
If one, they don't have anything, they've not thought of any negatives.
They're like,
there is no risk.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, you are. A recipe for disaster. That I've heard that, or not understanding even the question. You know what I mean? Like I plugged the numbers in my spreadsheet. It's what it spit out. What I'm showing to you. Like, what do you mean? Like, okay, things like that. And then if I just don't get the feeling that they've thought about it, or if if they're like making something up on the spot, it's like, okay, well, they haven't really thought about it yet. Those kind of answers would throw me off, or if it seemed like they weren't being honest or open. I'm not susceptible to a salesman. I'm more susceptible to somebody who thinks like I do.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if I feel like I'm being sold, it's like, no, dude, I'm asking a real question. Like, you don't have to. I do this. I invest. So you got to tell me why. Don't sell me on it. I understand, but
yeah, exactly.
What's the protections? Yeah.
The way to sell, you've got to establish a common ground to convince someone, right? You have to speak them in their language. So that would be the language of, okay, what's the underwriting thought process all the way through here? But I was going to ask you about that too. What keeps you up at night type question? Is it necessarily the same as, oh, have you underwritten conservatively enough and like assumed, unexplained soft demand, or you're not really talking about that because that should already be in the numbers.
Right. But there's a question there. I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm just talking about what greater economic factors, or even things outside mainly trying to get at those things outside your control that could potentially affect this investment, or that worry you about this investment. So it's going to be obvious. Many of these, and I just wrote another one down, many of these questions are going to go hand in hand and be very similar to each other. Along this same vein, the next question is, what would make me lose money on this deal? Like the Warren Buffett rule number 1, don't lose money. What could cause that? Is there something, we're going light on insurance to save money on cash flow, so a hurricane could sink us. It's something like that. Hey, we need interest rates to come down for our refinance, because if we can't pull any money, then, or we're doing a short-term loan that if interest rates aren't amenable then we might have to do a fire sale to get out of the current loan that we're on, or whatever. Things like that. I want to know, like, hey, what could happen that would make me lose money on this investment? And honestly, most of the time it's going to be some pretty black swan stuff, but we're in the black swan millennium, so we got these all over the place. So it could happen. So basically, what could happen that would cause me to lose this money? Like interest rates shoot up at the same time they complete 14,000 apartment units in this market, or whatever, which could be a crazy answer, but I want to know the answer.
Right. So again, I just want to make a distinction between there's the keep you up at night question, and then there is what sequence of events could lead to
losing money.
All the money going away. But that would seem really crazy. But me not
it happens
through losing money. Yeah, sure. I mean, even if you had to sell at a lower spot, you would think
somewhat. It depends on how bad the loan terms that you were in.
That's true. Yeah. So that's kind of like, what have you had the imagination and forethought to think that sequence of events through? If 2 weeks after you've purchased it and you're in the process of like transitioning over, then all of a sudden, I don't know the name of a major multifamily builder, but they decide that they're going to start grading right across the street from you.
Yeah.
And there was no way for you to know that, then like you're not really to blame, but there might
still
be
could happen, or even, hey, they built a prison right next door, and or something like that, which crazy stuff, but could happen. So that kind of stuff, I want to hear them talk through how, because I'm a rule number 1 guy. I don't want to lose money on investment. I'll accept lower returns for a higher level of certainty that I won't lose anything. You know what I mean? Obviously, every investment, you could lose it one way or another, but I want to go into investments with that downside risk mitigated as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can see the operator, not wanting to seem like a nervous Nelly, right?
Sure.
Nelly really gets a bad rap, but also you want to see them being realistic and thinking about things. And I got to say, if they're not nervous about something when they're trying to put a big deal together, then it's either concerning or they're a sociopath, which I guess is also concerning. So
exactly, any number of concerns, and along those same lines, you popped it into my mind just a little bit ago, and I wrote it down. But one of the best questions you could ask to figure out if somebody's underwriting conservatively is to ask, what needs to go right for you to hit these projections?
Mm-hmm.
And if they go, well, everything, what do you expect to happen? Are your projections based off what you expect to happen? Or are they based off of things are worse than you expect to happen?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because if the answer is I need everything to go right to hit these numbers, then I'm like, we're all gambling here. We're gambling that what we expect to happen will happen. Like, so in a game of blackjack, if you have an ace and you expect every card's expected to be a 10, yeah, that's awesome. But how often do we get blackjacks? You could sit down for hours and never get a single blackjack that you would expect to happen if you get an ace first, So that's called gambling.
Yeah. It would seem that no experienced operator would ever say all of these have to go exactly correct for us to hit these numbers. But I guess it could happen. I mean, that's like you're trying to hit a parlay, like a 6-game parlay in life.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
And you can't even do that.
It could all be
sports ball.
likely things, right? You could be picking 6 favorites, but
Yeah.
6 heavy favorites, but all it takes
Okay.
is one thing that you can't foresee.
Yeah,
And
I tried that strategy in the NCAA tournament where I took the worst odds. Like I was not going to make that much money, but I chose all favorites in the first round.
Still got beat.
Still got
That's how it works.
Still didn't work. When they asked that question, I'm just thinking, oh, what has to go right? Or I guess another way of doing that is how much can go wrong.
Yes.
Still hit these numbers and what kinds of things. Is it worthwhile to ask about specifics or just to see which ones they bring up, which is like more revealing? You could be like, oh, what's your expected vacancy level built into these numbers? Or, you could do that. Or is it more revealing to ask them and then whatever they focus on gives you insight?
I'd like to let them talk about how they made their numbers conservative. That's really what I'm getting at is what makes this conservative, these projections. We know what could happen, right? And if everything goes right, awesome. We're going to do really well. But that's also, it's basically just how good is the deal actually? Because if you need everything to go right to make projections and they're run-of-the-mill projections, then you're like, man, this isn't that good of a deal because if anything goes wrong, you're not getting anywhere near these projections. What I want to hear is even with quite a few things going wrong, things take longer, things are more expensive, vacancy rates are higher. We're still going to hit these projections, which tells me that, hey, we expect all of these things to be better than what we've underwritten. So we actually expect to beat these significantly, these numbers. And, that's what I always strive to do. And I want to invest with people who do the same thing. I haven't always done that. I fall into the trap of, hey, I do this. I can look at a pitch deck and understand it better than most. But even I fall short of kind of going, hey, how do I, especially if it's outside of my expertise, markets or asset class or something, then I don't ask the questions that I should sometimes.
And I guess we should just lay it out there that these questions and this advice is all going to basically be, you want to find an operator who is conservatively underwriting. Like that's just like the natural end to this conversation. But in those scenarios, like you said, like ask these questions. I didn't ask the right ones necessarily. Is it worthwhile to ask for the actual underwriting? Does that,
people have asked me for it, and I always share it if they ask for it. The problem is that it can often overwhelm because that's complicated spreadsheets and stuff, and they don't necessarily know what they're looking at. So you could ask for it. I could ask for it, and I'd see it and understand. Chances are I've probably seen their particular spreadsheet before. So it would just be hard to understand. Like that's a way to overwhelm it. If you don't have the underwriting experience, not involved in commercial transactions and things like that, or maybe mortgage loan origination or something, then it might be a lot of gibberish to you and it's going to distract you. You can get to the same answer, assuming that you found somebody that you can trust, asking the questions that we're talking about now. Just say, hey, how did you make this conservative? If something goes wrong, will we miss these projections? So on.
Makes me think that maybe there needs to be investor friendly condensed underwriting. If they want to see it, we want to show it, and we want them to understand. It's like here are 2 tabs, not 17.
Yeah.
But and then at that point, it's just an extension of a pitch deck. But all right, well, you kind of had already hinted at the next one.
Yeah, we can just go. We'll just keep going down the list. Basically, I like to ask, how much are you investing? How personally involved in this one are you? I guess the first half of the episode is us talking about risk. How has the risk been mitigated? How conservative projections? What are we looking at in terms of what we think will happen versus what could happen? All that, and then moving on, getting into more of the, hey, how personally committed are you to this? That being said, I like to ask, how much are you personally investing in this? How are you going to be? It's kind of a last ditch way to make sure that they're not just transactional fees, because there's a lot of people who do what I do who really just want to churn through as many deals as they can. They'll collect all the fees that you can get, and then neither here nor there what happens with that investment. So obviously, if they're investing a significant portion of their own personal capital in a deal, that's not going to be their approach to the investment.
Right. And some pitch decks and investment summaries will actually just put on there essentially what the GP is putting up. So if you don't see that, then definitely ask. Sure. Also, it's I think required that they put the fees they'll be charging on there. So that's another indication. If you see a higher percentage than standard than what you've seen, then,
yeah. And how front loaded versus back loaded are the fees that they'll be earning. If everything's up front, then they have no incentive to manage the deal. They're going to make all their money no matter what happens. So good point. You want to make sure that the fees are backloaded so that after you make your returns, that's when they'll make their returns. Because people who do it, we know it, but people who do what we do got to keep the lights on. They got a lot of overhead in terms of software and management and all that stuff that goes on. So you want them to be able to, you don't want your operator taking a side job, I suppose. So you want to make sure they do get paid so that they can focus on your property and making sure that the investment goes successfully. So the fee structure is good. That's a good point to bring up. But to me, it's kind of hand in hand. It's like, are you doing this as purely a job, or are you an investor at heart and you recognize this is a good investment?
Right. Yeah. That's straightforward. Like, oh, they're putting their skin in the game, right? They got money in, so they believe in it that much and they'll be that dedicated to it. Not that I guess you can't be dedicated without that. It's a very clear indication. I feel like one of the questions on this asking about them thing, it's interesting. We started with the technical and then we moved to the personal. That conversation could go either way, I suppose, if you're having a conversation with the operator.
Yeah.
But the experience one was one of the ones that we were going to ask about them. Like, how experienced are they? How experienced is the team? What kind of experience and background do they have? And one of those is how much experience do they have in this market? And I guess ask that class, but in the market one would seem like it might come up asking some of these other first questions. But anyways, that is
I mean, it's chicken or the egg, really. But it's like, hey, this is to qualify all the stuff you just told me earlier about risk to the investment, how we've mitigated, what the vacancy, all these different things. I'm going to go, hey, what's your experience in the market? More than likely it's included in the investment summary, their past deals, their size, business plan, how they relate to the current one being offered. You're going to want to verify that, and it's going to be up to you. It's like, hey, 2 years of experience, is that a lot? Not really in any particular market, because it's not really through a market cycle. I mean, ideally you'd have somebody who rode through 2 or 3 downturns, 20 years of experience, but they're not always good. You can't always hold out for those.
He'd only been doing it a few years. It was his first property in Mississippi. I don't know.
Yeah,
sometimes it could be a pretty steep hill to climb to get those experienced operators.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be up to you in terms of how experienced are they in assessing the risk, executing this type of business plan, that kind of stuff. So you just really talking through that, I think.
And I think that ends up being some kind of spectrum of how much do you know them. If you don't know them as well, but they have 20 years and they have all this track record.
Exactly. Like, you're going to blend those two together, and you're going to need to be, find a place that you're comfortable with. If you know somebody very well, but they're relatively new, but you trust them implicitly in who they are, then you could have the same amount of confidence that they'll react to things in a positive way versus you may not know somebody that well, but if they've been kicking butt for 20 years and they got a whole slew of other investors to show for it, then you're like, well, I'm relatively confident that it's going to continue. If he's done it this long and he's weathered XYZ storms, then then I think we're good.
And you just brought up kind of the connected piece to this.
Yep.
Which again, we'll go back to how much experience they have, asking them how they've dealt with adversity. Well, the adversity stories might be a little thin if they've only been doing it for 3 years, but if they've been doing it longer than that, they should have some pretty good stories and some solid,
anecdotes,
illustrations of their.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like, hey,
acting in crunch time.
And the answer could be, hey, I've been doing it 5 years and we've never really had that much adversity. And that could just be a testament to, hey, this is a really great market that you guys invest in or whatever. But you can't do this business without having some adversity. Believe me, I would argue that I've had more than my fair share, whoever is dealing out this adversity. But how do you deal with it, and how do you go about protecting the investments? And is that your number one priority when things get rough?
Right.
That's what you're trying to get at.
And I would think that what they term adversity would be revealing as well, right?
True.
What they consider adversity. How high is that bar? How low is that bar? It gives you insight into their way they see the world in some ways. And then there's different types of adversity. I don't know if is it worthwhile to ask them about something went wrong with the property, or something went wrong with the market wasn't what we thought it was, or also what did you do when have you ever failed at closing one? There's all different ways in which adversity can pop up. So I guess you just wait and see what they talk about.
Yeah. And like you said, you're trying to get at to how they see the world and what their priorities were when things got rough in whatever they deemed was rough,
Right. Is your go-to story the septic system at the Iran?
That or the hurricane that went over at the same time, or the interest rate spiking when we were trying to refinance it. I was actually looking back through a sidebar. I was looking back through yesterday, trying to find some specific emails on insurance stuff. But all the paperwork at the time we were buying in Hattiesburg, we were trying to refinance Deer Run, and interest rates shot up so high that it tanked our refinance. Insurance was spiking at the time as well, so it was a perfect storm. It was out of nowhere. We couldn't refinance our property. We got an appraisal for near where we sold it at 3 years later. We had that appraisal in hand, but the interest rates were so high and the insurance were shooting up that they were making us carry crazy margins, and lenders were all spooked, obviously, because that was literally the peak of the interest rate spike back in 2022. That we were just told, you can't do a refinance, you can't have any cash. You're going to have to rehack the loans at a higher interest rate that you bought with. It was, just about everything that could go wrong with the property went wrong with that one. So, that was the worst.
Yeah. So in that instant, if the operator can recall everything that happened and also the response, and then you've got a lot of insight into how they operate. I guess the operator operates, but in that scenario, there was a lot of we're not going to be paying anything for a while because
exactly.
But you know what? You want to hear that too.
What saved me and what I think makes me as good of an investor as I am is that I knew that there was so much value in that property, and we bought it at such a good price. It more than doubled, right? Like we sold that thing and so it was like, okay, I knew the value was there and I knew it was coming. So really the game was ride the storm, sometimes literally when the hurricane went over and replaced all the roofs. Ride the storm, and if you're right in the value, and we knew we were at that point, because again, we had that appraisal in hand, make it so that you're cash flowing enough so that you can ride the conditions for as long as you have to in order to recognize the value. And that was what we were ultimately able to do. But that's what you want to hear from your operators. Like, hey, are you good enough at finding value that even through sometimes crazy adversity, you can operate it with the knowledge that it'll come to you eventually?
Right. So that's that line that you're looking for, that's a seasoned or a good operator will be able to walk, which is conviction and confidence, but also realistic and
realism. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's seeing like, I am confident in this. I'm not just taking a flyer, but at the same time, let's go in eyes wide open. And that's kind of that two sides of that coin. And I was just thinking though, probably if you're trying to talk to an operator, you're probably going to want to be able to have this entire conversation in like 30 minutes. So we don't extend it anymore and be like, well, if you have an hour and a half, you can ask them all kinds of things. But yeah, within 30 minutes call, these things you should be able to ask and get some good sense of. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up there. As always, we appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, feel free to reach out on any of the platforms or on our website. And as always, if you want to get involved, please let us know and we'll get that process started. Until then, or until next week, we're going to get out of here, and hopefully you guys will come back and hang out with us next week on another edition of the Get Invested podcast.
See ya.